session is by Dr. Taher Dhoon of the Colorado Surgical Suite. And before we invite him up, he is speaking on the financial benefits of implementing specialty procedures in your practice. Dr. Taher Dhoon was born in Utah, where he learned to love the outdoors. He later moved to California, receiving his BA in Physiology and Neuroscience from the University of California, San Diego. He went on to earn his Doctor of Dental Medicine degree from the University of Pennsylvania School of Dental Medicine. Dr. Dhoon has traveled worldwide to learn and perfect the most complex techniques available in modern-day dentistry. He is trained in all aspects of dentistry: general, sleep, ortho, surgical, full mouth rehabs, and more. And he has seen firsthand the power of these surgical transformations and how they change the lives of his patients and their families. That's why he developed a proven system that delivers fast and predictable surgical solutions. He is the co-founder of the Colorado Surgical Institute, a live patient training center in northern Colorado. He guides dentists through surgeries that they perform on live patients so that they can truly grasp the skills needed to succeed when they return to their communities. Dr. Dhoon also teaches the business of dentistry with the Dental Success Institute, has authored a book on startups and acquisitions called The Practice Launchpad, and is a faculty member in multiple dentistry forums and implantology programs. He also trains GPs to become super GPs in his Advanced Associates program, and then finds jobs and offices that will allow them to experience astronomical growth. Please join me as we welcome Dr. Dhoon to the stage. Woo!
Thank you. So that was a really nice introduction. First and foremost, I want to thank Neodent for putting on an amazing venue. I mean, I always like coming to Miami, and the Fountain Blue is amazing. So thank you, Danny, and the Neodent team for all the planning that it takes to put this together. We're going to talk about the financial why. And for everyone, it's a different why. So at the end of the day, make sure you understand from a purpose perspective what we're really aiming to achieve. And again, with the questions, please scan the QR code and we'll handle questions at the end of the day. So first and foremost, these are my lovely kids, Connor, Claire, and Jonathan. They're 8, 6, and 4. And for anyone in the room who has children, you understand the immediate perspective that can give you. So we want to talk about how do you build profit with purpose. And so not all the dollars are created equally, right? You could be selling arms to the Taliban, and you could be doing dentistry, and we've chosen a noble profession where, from a dental perspective, we can actually affect our communities and affect change. And for me personally, I'm a little embarrassed to say it. Sometimes when I started off as a young dentist, I just wanted to get paid. I was broke. I had a wife who was pregnant, and I just needed to figure out how to get money in the bank. And that was my guiding purpose. And what I found out through the years is that dentistry has allowed me to find more purpose with connecting with patients. So what we want to talk about today is aligning your income goals with your personal life and visions. What's the why? The why is going to help you prevent from getting burnt out. And just remember, money is just an IOU for time. So after this presentation and after the presentation after lunch, the goal is how do we get your productivity per hour to increase significantly so you can either double down and put more cash in the bank, or you can work less hours, make more money, and find more balance within your private practices and your lives. So this is my personal life lesson. And it was a tough one to learn. So I graduated in 2012 from the University of Pennsylvania. I was doing a startup in a town called Erie, Colorado in 2015. I was buying the dirt, building the practice. I had bad legal representation. I had a poor developer. The brokers were kind of double dipping. I was just really ignorant to the process. And I was a student of the game, and I really knew my things. And at the same time, I made some critical mistakes. And I was actually here in Florida, in Orlando, on a family vacation, and I got the call saying that the project was going south. And have you ever seen the Spike Lee movies where, you get the bad news and you're on that conveyor belt, like the actor is floating? I literally felt that groundlessness, like someone had just pulled the rug out from underneath me. And I looked at my wife and I said, I think I'm going to walk away from the project. I think we lost everything here. And I didn't actually have to file Chapter 11, but at the same time, after I paid all the bills, I had to pay architects, I had to pay developers, I had to pay supply companies. We just had like $5,000 in the bank. And she was pregnant with our first. We had just paid off the 20% on our first house, and then the year before, we paid off our wedding. So I called all the brokers and I told them, hey, find me anything. I'll do anything. So they found me a practice an hour north from Denver in Greeley, Colorado. It was a standard GP practice, doing $1.1 million with a 70% overhead, 6 operatories, 2 hygienists, doctor worked 3.5 days a week. And I just told them, like, hey, I'll take it, let's go. So I did the acquisition, and I remember that I incentivized the team to hit certain metric goals, but I didn't have enough money in the account to actually pay those bonuses right away. So I gave them their bonus checks in envelopes I didn't seal, and I asked for the envelopes back. And I did that for 6 months just to save pennies anywhere I could, to really just be lean and mean in the process. And so just remember, when you're winning, you're not as good as you think you are. And when you're losing, you're just not as bad as you think you are either. And so this is the trajectory for the practice. 6 operatories, 5 doctor days, 4 hygiene days, 1.1 million, 70% overhead when I took over. Now, the first year, I was a DIY person. I listened to Mark on the podcast, Dr. Costas on the podcast, read Dental Town, was on social media, and I was able to add $400,000 in revenue just by adding specialty procedures into the practice, but I really didn't make a huge impact into the overhead because all I was doing was turning the faucet on and the bucket was filling, but all the revenue, all the profit was spilling out the bottom end. So then I joined Dental Success Institute in 2018, and we added another $600,000 in revenue, but the real beautiful thing was I crushed the overhead, 18%. 18% of that $2 million came into my pocket because of systems that we put in place. So I'll go through a lot of those systems here for you today. The one other thing I want you to see on this one is in year 2020, the overhead went back up. Essentially what's going to happen every once in a while is you're going to hit this glass ceiling. And the glass ceiling is going to require you to infuse money into the business to build the systems or the infrastructure of the team to get to the next level. So overhead creeping up for 1 year is not a bad thing as long as you know your numbers and you're intentionally getting after it. And then in 2023, I sold the practice, Colorado Surgical Institute, and the educational program. It's something really just fills up my soul. So I've dedicated the rest of, or at least the next 10 years to teaching. Who knows what I'm going to do when I'm in my 50s. But I've told this story a lot of times on webinars, podcasts, all these things. And one thing I sometimes will selectively leave out is this part, okay? So a lot of growth. By all Western standard metrics, right, I was a successful person, and I had built a very successful business. But what I found is I took a lot of shortcuts, and the longest distance between the start and finish line were the shortcuts I was allowing myself to take. And I was burnt out, I had adrenal fatigue, I had a functional med doc do all my blood work, and I was just shocked. I was shocked at how bad things were. And I would actually recommend everyone in here to get your blood work done. It's like your own standard P&L for your body, right? Figure out your numbers, figure out what you got to work on. So I had insomnia, I had mercury toxicity. I talked to the functional med doc. I was like, hey, in dentistry, we think this is kind of bullshit. Like, where's the mercury coming from? Well, she's like, okay, well, your liver function isn't working properly. And so with that said, mercury can get in your system. So I had high levels of mercury. And once I did the metal detox, I can't explain it. I can't really tangibly put my finger on it, but sunsets were brighter, music sounded different. It was really interesting. I had lost weight. I had a short fuse due to chronic stress. I had team turnover because I was just too much of a hard ass on stuff. And I just wasn't present mentally for my family. Sometimes I absolutely was dialed in, and other times, I was thinking about the office. I was thinking about a strategy. I was thinking about, something else when I'm trying to be present with the family. And then, of course, chronic and neck and back pain. So what I figured out through the years is just pain will push you to a certain degree, and if you have that will to just do whatever it takes to get things done, that will push you to a certain degree. Then at some point, you need to have a vision because that's going to pull you forward. So really at the end of the day, there's a lot of things we can do with our careers, right? You can have a lifestyle practice, you can work 3 days a week, have a nice balanced life. You can build this empire and have this giant hospital and all the multidisciplinary things in your practice. You can have multiple practices and have this massive DSO cell on the exit strategy, or you can be a traveling surgeon. Now, the only thing with traveling surgery, yeah, your W-2 or 1099 is going to be really, really high, but you're not going to have an asset to sell as your nest egg later down the road. So what I've done over the past several years is just really redefine what prosperity means to me. Prosperity, what it meant to me in my 30s was just cash in the bank, good clinical skills, big practice, good numbers, and now what it means to me is balance. Is if I can do all these things and I can balance everything, I can be present with the family, then that's my new definition of prosperity. So what's helped me immensely is just meditation, right? You can journal, you can walk in nature. My advice is just get away from your phone for 30 minutes and get some sunlight and just go for a walk. A lot of the solutions are just inside of us, and you just need to go and you need to think about these things and just reflect on what's happening and then take notes, but take notes the old-fashioned way. Just chicken scratch it somewhere. What I would also recommend is annual family planning. So me and my wife, this sounds a little weird because I was just not bought into it in the very beginning, but we sit down and we create an agenda and we talk about our non-negotiables. And what I found over the years is we were, on two ends of the spectrum with what our non-negotiables were. And now her non-negotiables are my non-negotiables and my non-negotiables are hers. So we sit down and we figure out, hey, what do we want to do with our year? And if you're in a very tumultuous year, maybe you're buying a practice or getting married or having children, maybe you got to do a quarterly family plan and just realign to make sure we all are aiming for the same things. Because if you're not aiming in the same direction, from a household perspective, that's going to trickle out into what's happening in your business too. And then don't imitate others. Be your own mentor, right? Mentors are here to guide you, but you need to take their information, curate it, and make it authentically your own as well. So money just buys choices, and it can buy peace, or peace is inside and you handle Maslow's hierarchy of needs and your money is your safety net, and then you can focus on the other things later down the road. So let's figure out ways, we're gonna go through a lot of math here to make you guys money. Systems and boundaries are there to protect your energy. You don't have to say yes to everything. Burnout will absolutely happen, and I think we all go through burnout, and it's natural. I think it's not normal to think you're never gonna hit burnout. But maybe the goal is when you hit burnout, you're only there for a month or a week versus a year. So that's just when it can really have a negative effect. And just know your non-negotiables. I write down my non-negotiables every year, and it's interesting to look back 7 years at my non-negotiables and then kind of see where I am today and see how things have evolved as well. And just remember, growth is something that you never graduate from. I graduated and I thought I was like God's gift to dentistry. And I had this massive ego, and I was pretty good, but at the same time, I found out all the things I didn't know along the way. So the education for me really started when I graduated. So build a business that's authentically you, right? Authenticity is big business all day long. People like to look at dentistry like it's a commodity. Cornflakes is cornflakes is cornflakes. Well, we all know that that's not true, but patients don't know that that's not true. And then just visualize different paths. If you're gonna have a standard GP practice and do bread and butter, like there's a lot of honor in that. You don't have to do surgery, but you're gonna have less stress clinically. You have less systems needed to run the business. You have typically, theoretically speaking, less HR issues because the front office only needs to schedule a few procedures. The DAs only need to perform certain procedures. And then typically an exit strategy is gonna be, private sell to like a solo doc. I mean, obviously if the EBITDA is high, any type of DSO would wanna come in and purchase it. My favorite way to do things these days, after coaching a lot of dentists and just kind of being on the path myself, is being a super GP. You're definitely gonna have higher clinical requirements all day long, but your earning potential is astronomical. It's astronomical. You're gonna have moderate HR issues because your front office needs to learn how to schedule like multidisciplinary things and know what specialties go in what areas. Your DAs need to learn multiple specialties. And you're gonna have more exciting work to do and higher impact with your patients, typically speaking. And of course, the increased sale value is there as well. And then of course, you can have multiple practices. That's what I thought I wanted when I was a new doc. I thought I'd own 3 practices and do specialty procedures at each practice 1 day a week. And it's just higher HR issues. There's a higher admin stress. You have massive turnover. Quality control is sometimes harder when you have a bunch of associates and you're just trying to manage everything and standardize it. And there's no knock on it, right? Everyone can walk their own path. Everyone can kind of figure out what works better for them. And here's just some rough numbers, right? Solo GPs can sometimes pull in 300 to 500 at the end of the year, pre-tax. Solo super GPs, if you're doing implants and sedation and sleep and ortho, I mean, I've seen some of these docs pulling in more than $2 million, but at the end of the day, it's like, without comparison to others and just benchmarking yourself, how can we improve maybe 20% a year? And if we're starting at a lower number, that's okay. We're gonna work our way up. You got time, there's a lot of runway in front of you. And then a multi-location owner, in the beginning, maybe you're infusing a lot of your profit into the business to grow the business and infrastructure and all the things and build all the systems you need. And then at some point, the pendulum will swing the other direction, and then you have all this time and you have all these resources that can come in. So I always believe this, and I have a lot of self-belief on this end, but you can do anything. But at the same time, I tried to do everything, and it burnt me out. So just focus where it's needed. Figure out where your energy is needed, figure out where it's gonna have the massive effect, and how do we figure that out? We figure it out by doing the math, and then you can reverse engineer things. And I do this exercise every single year. So how do we figure out our ideal hourly revenue? First, we do our family plan, and we figure out exactly how many days we're gonna work per month, and then take 2 extra weeks off on top of that. And then maybe you're gonna work more days in January, you're gonna work less days in November and December. So when I look at my P&L and I'm only working 8 days in December and 8 days in November, and I have a little dip, that's okay, because I worked 16 days in October, and everything balances out. But all in the same time, I'm not making huge capital expenditures in the months that have lower revenue associated with it. And then let's just say you want to aim at $2 million, right? Pick any arbitrary number. The math for this example is just $2 million. Well, then you got to work 12 clinical days a month if you've committed to doing 144 days of clinical work per year. And then what does that mean? The practice needs to collect $13,889 per day. And then if you have 2 hygienists and you benchmark them at $3,200 a day, then what's the doctor need to collect? Doctors need to collect $10,689 per day. And that averages out to $200 per hour for the hygiene department. So now you know the front office is given a template to schedule to $200 per hour per day. Maybe overshoot it a little bit if you want to, and then you can kind of fall back to where your numbers are. And then the doctors need to produce $1,336 per day. So now you can tell the front office, hey, in my first column, don't put anything in there. That's not a $1,500 per hour procedure. If it's not at that value, it goes in my second column. And then my third column is just post-ops and non-production things or assistant-driven revenue. So there's a strategy behind using the numbers to then bring it to your team so they understand how to schedule for you. And this one really, I mean, I had to change a lot about myself to get to the next level every time I try to hit this inflection point in the business. So you can't have a new reality with an old mentality. So more math is needed because at the same time, we've only calculated clinical hours. And I don't think it's realistic to say that we're not going to work on the business as the CEO at the same time. So what's the opportunity cost? Let's say you're going to work 1 admin day per week on the business. You're not generating any revenue, so that's 400 hours per year. At your $1,336 per hour, that $400 per year is over $500,000. So now you have a decision to make. You can say, you know what, I actually enjoy CEO time. I'm fine with that day. Well, at least you know what you're committing to here. Or do I just hire an office manager, pay him $150, turn that 400 hours into 100 hours. I know the delta. I know what my time is worth. And then outsource it to people who are trained to do these things for you. And then whatever you want to do with the extra time is up to you. If you want to work 300 extra clinical hours, great. Now you know what you're going to make on top of your goal. Or do you want 300 hours back at home with the family? Outsource and delegate. Just maximize your time. So learning how to empty your mind is more important than learning how to fill it. And what I've had to do from dental school is forget a lot of things that just took up mental real estate, clear all that out of there, and then fill it with the things that are actually applicable to where I am at this point in my life. So delegation. Delegation is just key. And if you look at orthodontics, you look at sleep, you look at full arch, it's a heavily assistant-driven procedure. And so if you can train your team and you take some time in the beginning and you train the team to do the things you want them to do, then you can just come in and check the work versus actually physically doing the work. Like occlusal adjustments, I let the team do the occlusal adjustment, and then I come in and I refine and I check and I make sure everything is fine, but I've just saved myself 15 minutes there, or 7 minutes there, or 3 minutes there. But all those minutes add up. All those minutes will add up at the end of the year. And so I want you all to share certain numbers with the team, but you don't have to share everything with them. Everyone is entitled to privacy, and there's a huge difference between secrecy and privacy. So you can strategically share with the team, selectively share with the team what the numbers are actually going to be. And then better yet, have them do the calculations. All those calculations that Dr. Costas showed you, I didn't do that for my office. I just paid someone a $200 spot bonus to go in and do those things for me. And then now we have this operations manual created, and I spent, all of 3 hours reading it, redlining it, and giving it to them to just approve. And at the same time, it shows them their role and the bigger picture in the practice. It gives them an idea of, hey, you just did a $50,000 case. Well, now they understand I didn't put $50,000 in my pocket. They understand where the vector of cash flow is running through the business. And then when they talk about raises and they talk about all these other things, well, guess what? They have a more profound understanding of the business. So now the ask is maybe theoretically more reasonable. And so if we look at this from the perspective of, okay, well, what can I actually delegate to my team to do for me? Supply budget all day long, labs, marketing, office supplies. And if you look at your P&L and you're at a 60% or 70%, and you say, hey, Michaela, my dental assistant, I'll give you $200 if you can decrease our supply budget and get it from 5% to 4% or 4% to 3%. Well, in a $2 million practice, 1% of that is going to be $1,666 per month. So I can easily justify giving Michaela $200 every month she keeps the supplies low. Same thing for labs, same thing for marketing. Outsource, delegate, check their work, make sure it's in line, but that only takes a quarter of the time. And just remember, everyone in this room, you all are your most important project. So if you work on yourselves, you get certain skill sets, you do anything you want to do, that is going to have the biggest ROI. Your time per hour is the most important thing in your business. And then also your mental real estate and how you protect that is equally, if not more important than anything else. And so some doctors will see the continued education as an expense, and wise doctors will see it as an investment. So the question I ask myself is, okay, in the right hands, can I go to this thing? Can I make this expense? And can I turn it into an investment? And so if it's an investment, yeah, you got the ROI coming in, arguably for the rest of your career. You always have the skill set, you always have the knowledge. Or is it going to be the microscope I bought for the hygiene department that they don't use anymore, and then I have an expense? So either way, just make sure you do the analysis. You go on that walk, you do that journal entry, and you find out, hey, is that going to be worth it for me in the long run to have this skill set? And so what's the ROI of advanced training? You definitely don't have to double your workload, and you don't have to double your team either. It's just one additional case per month is the first step. So how do I go from $1 million to $5 million? Just one step at a time. And it took 8 years to get there. And the hope is, by you all taking time away from your friends and family to be here to learn, and get the guidance of other people who've already walked in that path. Maybe you can do it in 3 years. Maybe you can do it in 4 years. We just want to fold time for you. There's still a journey and a path to get to the finish line, but you don't have to get there overnight. So as long as you're going to make the micro shifts to get to the goal, and you're going to stay resolute in it, and you have follow through, then advanced training is always a good benefit. And then typically the way it goes is you get the skill, then you get the confidence. And when you get the confidence and you execute these things in your practice, then your team gets the confidence. And if your team is confident in the care you're providing, they are going to sell treatment like there's no tomorrow. And then you get case acceptance from your patients because the energy in the practice is, hey, we do this all day long and we are really, really good at this. And then of course the revenue comes later down the road. So if you're presenting $5 million of dentistry and everyone in the office is resonating and saying, hey, we are amazing at this, and your case acceptance increases by 10%, that's another $500,000 in revenue coming in on the same amount of patients that are always in your practice nonetheless. Or let's say you add another modality like sleep and orthodontics, or implants and full arch and other surgical procedures, and now you're presenting $10 million of dentistry, and your case acceptance goes up 5%, well, you're still at that $500,000 in additional revenue. So there's so many ways to get that revenue line item up, and there's things you can do without having to pay more in marketing to get to that level. So what's just the low-hanging fruit in your practice? For me, it was wisdom teeth. So I ran a report. I figured out what's getting referred out of the business, and then at the same time, I looked at like, okay, how many cases can I actually do? And do I have the training to do it? So with orthodontics, if you did a $6,000 case, and you did 5 starts per month, that's an additional $360,000 in revenue. Airway, we're just talking mandibular advancement devices. I'm not talking about SFOT or expansion or Vivos or any of this stuff. Just mandibular advancement devices at $300 or $3,500 per case, and you did 5 starts, that's $210,000 in additional revenue. Wisdom teeth, if you do 5 extra cases of wisdom teeth, getting paid $2,000 per case, and typically speaking with PRF, IV sedation, and the wisdom teeth, you're gonna get paid far more than that. There's $120,000. And once you get proficient at wisdom teeth, you can just have a wisdom tooth morning, and you could probably do 10 cases in the morning, and you could do 10 cases in the afternoon, and then you could eclipse that number by and large. Single implants, $2,000 per single implant. You get 5 starts per month. So from that perspective, you know, I mean, I'm not calculating the abutment and crown because theoretically, if you referred it out, you'd be getting the abutment and crown back into your practice. There's 120 there. And if you charge $22,000 for 1 full arch per month, there's $264,000 in additional revenue. So now you have a GP practice that's doing whatever you're doing from a general perspective. The hygiene department is dialed in as just a profit center. And then you have specialty procedures that come in. There's easily an extra $1 million in revenue. And then for the astute people in the room who are saying, well, hey, ortho is paid over, 24 months, no interest in the practice, well, then, okay, you got to play the long game. At month 25, then you start to hit that $360,000 in revenue. And the cool thing about that is at month 25, if your collections dip, the ortho checks that are just coming in for cases already provided that are heavily assistant driven, your collections goes up to like 110%. So it's going to buffer you against those bad months as well. So I think it's important to understand where we came from to understand also where you want to go. So the history of complex dentistry, the doctor I bought my practice from, Dr. Boys, he's 78 years old now, and there was a time where he didn't have to wear gloves. And this is one generation of dentist to another dentist, and now we have photogrammetry, we have 3D printers, we have all this technology that we can use. And so the future is bright. This is a good time to be in dentistry. AI, ChatGPT, all these things we have access to is going to change the landscape. And I would heavily have everyone here double down on conferences like this, understanding the technology, understanding what lever to pull in your business to where you're going to deploy your capital to increase your revenue. And then the dental school culture. I speak at dental schools all the time, and they're still saying the same thing they were saying to me back in the day is, hey, GPs need to stay in their lane, right? You do what you're supposed to do, you refer everything else. And I think today, at least we understand that. That's more of an antiquated type of way of thinking, but still it does resonate out there, and there's a lot of people who think that way. So what can a generalist actually do? We can do full arch, we can do single implants, we can do a quadrant of implants, we can remove wisdom teeth, IV sedation, PRF, pterygoids and zygomas. I know sometimes that sounds divisive, but there's plenty of generalists who are doing zygomas and pterygoids all the time and doing them really, really well. Complex grafting and sinus lifts, orthodontics and expansion, sleep apnea and airway therapy. And just remember, the magic that you're looking for is in the work that you're avoiding. So if there's something you're avoiding, like, yeah, you don't like looking at your P&L, start getting a better understanding of your P&L. If you don't like doing, MODBL, WTF fillings on a number 2, kind of double down and get into it. Like, go where the resistance is, okay? There is resistance in your life for a reason, and if you attack those things and you go get proficient at those things, there's a lot of knowledge that comes along the way. And then also, a side note, with expansion and early intervention for children with airways, if you're not overly passionate about airway, at the same time, I would just have this be a consideration. What it's at least done for my practice is if you help someone's kids sleep better, and then all of a sudden they're behaving better, and their intelligence points are kind of going up a little bit, Moms and dads talk about this stuff at the school. So yeah, okay, great. We've done something amazing for that child. That's amazing. Maybe he doesn't light you up, but parents talk a lot at schools, and we get a lot of referrals just from our airway program for parents who come in and who do surgery in the practice. So there's other ways to attract people into your practice, and sometimes if you help someone's child out, it's just this like thing people talk about. They're like, oh my God, Connor is doing so much better. He's sleeping better. The bags under his eyes are gone. He's focusing more. So there's other ways to attract surgery into your practice versus just a traditional modality of just paying a marketing company to do it for you. And so yesterday I was clever, and so I wanted to change the world. And today I'm wise, and so I want to change myself. So how do I strategically invest in myself? And this is just what I did. You guys can pick any numbers you want to do. But I started recording when I was doing wisdom teeth, the revenue that was coming in through wisdom teeth. And I took 10% of that revenue and I put it into a high interest account that was just a savings account that I never touched. Then when I said, okay, I'm going to go learn implants, I need 20 grand to go learn implants. When that account hit $20,000, I took that 20 grand and I paid for my implant CE. And then the same thing, rinse and repeat. So this way you're not sucking money out of your pockets and out of your business. You're strategically planning for the future and investing in yourself. Or if I need to buy some equipment, okay, I'm gonna let that bank account hit a certain level, and then I'm gonna call my CPA and I'm gonna ask him about my tax basis. And if my tax basis looks good at the end of the year, then I can go ahead and spend that money on the equipment. So if my tax basis is $50,000 and I spend $100,000, I'm only gonna write off $50,000. So I'm gonna check with my CPA to make sure if I'm spending 100 grand on equipment, well, I want 100 grand in tax basis to get the maximum write-off too. And then just rinse and repeat. So it's whatever evolution of CE that you want to do to employ or integrate into your business, do that. If you don't like doing root canals, don't do root canals. If you don't like doing single implants, don't do single implants. If you don't like doing wisdom teeth, don't do wisdom teeth. But if you resonate with it and you actually want to do it, I'd say follow through with it, right? Have that self-belief where it's like, okay, things are slow and I've made an investment and it's slow right now, but it won't be slow forever. And I got to stick with it and I got to get to the finish line. So more numbers, but I think it's important to understand where your money goes. So what's the true cost of failure in the practice if you have an implant fail? So if you place 100 implants per year and you have a 5% failure rate, I would say most people would think that's good. And my numbers here are going to be dramatic, but I'm doing it to prove a point, just so you have an idea of what failure can look like and why training to decrease your failure percentages are so important. So let's say you charge $3,000 for the extraction, the grafting, and the implant, and your overhead is 50%, you're a dialed-in practice. This is a healthy practice. So you have 3 appointments to place, do the extraction, graft, and implant, 2-week suture removal, 6-week PA to check it, and then let's say you find a failure. So your profit on the $3,000 is $1,500, but now you got to pay an associate. If you're the operator, you still have to do the math as if you're an associate, so you understand the true profit of the business nonetheless. So you pay the associate $1,000. I just did 33% of adjusted production for easy math. So your profit's $500. Now we have to go and fix it. The implant's failed. So explant, graft, 2-week suture removal, 4-week membrane removal, 3-month CBCT, 3.5-month implant placement, 2-week check, 6-week check. So now it's cost you $1,500 more in overhead to fix the case. So this is already equating to a $1,000 loss on that one implant. But it gets worse. So now let's assume you're in a very busy practice. You have no room. You guys are sardines in a sardine can. Every operatory is full. This operatory could have someone else getting another procedure done. So now you have to factor in the money that you would have made in a busy operatory versus now you're repairing an implant. So opportunity cost lost. I learned about opportunity cost loss after I was a dentist for 5 years. So I hope that everyone has this knowledge now because it's a real number associated with the time in the business. So let's say the opportunity cost, the cost per operatory per hour in the average practice doing generally well is $500 to $1,000 per operatory per hour. It's going to take you 4 extra hours for the failure, so you have a loss of $2,000 to $4,000. So the total negative impact for every failed implant is $3,000 to $5,000. Now, at the end of the day, this is predicated on a very busy practice. You didn't have a single opening in there, so this is worst case scenario, but I want you to know the numbers associated with this. So 5 failed implants, you give up the profit on theoretically the next 30 to 50 implants. So doing a successful surgery and using an implant that actually integrates appropriately and has good manufactured parts is important. So okay, in math, 2 plus 2 equals 4. In engineering, 2 plus 2 equals 3.99 to 4.01. If you don't use a company that actually uses good parts and pieces, well then now you're 3.75 to 4.25. And if you get a 4.25 part to fit your 3.75 part, it's not gonna fit well. So a little bit of an investment in a superior product in some circumstances pays dividends in the long run. And again, this is the worst case scenario. And then if you have failures in your practice, there's a reputational cost associated with patients not having a good experience too. So how do we decrease the surgical errors? The objective is educational programs and mentors to guide you. But how do you get free mentorship? Call your local periodontist, call your local oral surgeon. It's something I wish I would have done. I had a little bit too much ego and hubris in the beginning when I owned my own practice. And I was like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna do all my surgery, and I didn't really reach out to the specialists. And it's something I wish I really did. I wish I had better relationships with the specialists in my area, and now we're on the stage of having lunches and coffee and talking about cases. But it's something I would implore everyone here to do, because you can just go to their office. You can send them a $50,000 case and then go to their office and watch the case get done. And it's almost like you're recreating $20,000 of CE in that one day, and you don't have to take time off work. You don't have to travel. You don't need a hotel. So there's ways to go and get training in a free manner as well. And then at some point when you're like, okay, I'm ready for a program, then go to the program, get everyone's number you see in the hallways. It's important to be friends and in contact with people who are at the same level that you are currently. Then it's important to find people younger than you and then pay it forward and teach them, because you get a lot of knowledge from teaching. It'll really shine a spotlight on your weak points when you can't answer a question for a mentee, because then you have to go in and search for the answer yourself, and then get every mentor's number. And most mentors and most people who are in education, for a specific reason, teaching is in their DNA. I wanted to be a high school teacher before I became a dentist, and my parents are Indian dentists, so they're like, hey, you gotta be a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer. And so that was the direction it took me. But then I find my way back to teaching, in my 40s. So at the same time, the mentors like to teach. It's in our DNA. It's never an inconvenience. Text them your cases. Text them the med history, take a picture of the pano, put your implant in the CBCT, and just plan it out and text them and say, hey, what do you think? And the reason why that's important is in the beginning, if you do case selection poorly, and every case that walks into the door you want to do, you're gonna have a higher failure rate. Now, granted, there's a lot of knowledge and failure. You're gonna fix a lot of cases and you're gonna get better at that, but there's a huge opportunity cost lost on that. So if you talk to the mentors are gonna say, hey, this is a green light, go for it all day long, have no fear. Or we're gonna say, hey, here's a moderate case, here's the 3 things we think you might run into, be prepared for these 3 things. Or we could tell you, hey, you know what, this is a red flag, don't do it. Or if you do choose to do it, be prepared, but you're gonna get some experience along the way. Of course, you're gonna have an improved quality of life, decreased stress level, increased revenue and profit, increased community reputation, and then the confidence that you and your team are gonna have. If your team sees you failing early in the beginning, energetically to those patients, we've all walked into offices and you're like, wow, it feels like someone died in here type of thing. And if you walk into a practice and like everyone is just on the same frequency, it's palpable. Patients can feel it. And they know a practice that delivers high quality excellence when they walk into the door. So some of the essentials for your surgical outcomes. We talked about case selection, of course, case prep, efficient scheduling and systems, advanced clinical techniques. The comprehensive post-op follow-up killed me in the beginning. It killed me in the beginning. There's a guy named Ron, we forgot his antibiotics. We did laterals, both implants failed, lost bone on the cuspids and the central incisors, and it took me 2 years to fix the case. Thank God Ron was a nice and understanding person, but like that's how important your comprehensive post-op follow-ups need to be. So how do we get strategic on this? There's a system in here. So do we want to make prefabricated videos that we talk about every procedure, and we tell the patients, hey, you've signed up for this procedure. Great, you made an excellent choice. Here's the things you need to know. And then the next video is, hey, you're 1 week post-surgical. I hope you remembered these things. These are the things you should be doing at home. And then do we have a 2-week follow-up video and a 3-week and a 1 month and a whatever? So if you create all these videos, and they can be low budget, you don't need a marketing company to come in here and actually record it for you and have professional B-roll done in your building. Just iPhone on the doctor, talking about what needs to happen, and then put it on a QR code and hand the patient a paper with a QR code on it so they can scan it. And the beauty of QR codes is once you update your footage, you can just change everything on the back end and all that print material is still good to use. And so if you give your patients information and resources and then have them sign it and then scan that into their document saying, hey, they were provided all these things, well, now, God forbid, there's a complication. Well, guess what? Your Honor, this is everything we gave the patient, and they still didn't put the brush in their mouth type of thing. So you're also protecting yourself from a medical legal perspective and cutting down on the potential complications you're going to have in your business. So the importance of consent. I won't touch on all of this because we kind of get this, but there's a few things. Number one is the high-tech law. So the high-tech law is essentially, it's the patient's HIPAA-protected rights to not disclose their own information to their own insurance company. So if you want to do a case and you are bound by a lot of insurances and you're like, look, it's not worth it for me to do this case at this fee, you can have the patient sign the high-tech form if you feel comfortable with it. Everything that any presenter ever gives you, make sure you look at it and you critique it and you make sure you're comfortable with it. It's like me standing up here and telling you to invest in Bitcoin, right? If you do the investment into Bitcoin, you're 100% responsible for the results that you're gonna get. So if I'm standing up here and saying, hey, use the high-tech form, make sure you look into it, make sure you're comfortable with it. I got the high-tech form from a veneer doc who's doing 10 over 10 veneer cases, and it's worked for years, and it's worked in my practice for years. But I want you guys to feel comfortable with the information we're giving you as well. So now you present a global fee for the case and say, hey, this case is $20,000. And of course, we're going to use your insurance. We're just going to use your insurance on your hygiene visits because this case here, it just is better than parceling it out and unbundling all the fees. We're going to bundle it up and charge you this. You sign this form, and now we can use the labs we want to use and so on and so forth, whatever spiel you want to give them. So the high-tech form is something that helps you implement these procedures in your practice and protect your practice from insurance audits as well. And then the Candor process. So the Candor process is really interesting. It's a new bit of legislation that came out a few years ago. So as we start to get into a little bit more complex type of work, you are going to have failures, right? Fillings can fail, root canals can fail, implants can fail. It's all going to happen. If you do enough, you're going to have that experience. You're going to learn what it's like to go through it. And then hopefully you don't have as many sleepless nights, and hopefully you keep your stomach lining. But all at the same time, just know we're all going through this together because nothing we ever do is perfect. So the Candor process is like, look, there's an adverse outcome. Let's get ahead of this. Let's call the patient. You call your malpractice. They provide some forms. You call the patient. You send them these forms, and they sign the Candor process. Essentially what this means is you're going to meet in a third-party space. They'll have legal representation. You'll have legal representation. There's no judge. There's no jury. Nothing is admissible in court. Nothing is recorded. This is just a safe place to talk about what has occurred. And then you can figure out a number right then and there. And you can say, you know what? I think that I charge you 20 grand or I charge you $10,000 and I feel like it's maybe going to take an extra 15 to clean this up. So I want to offer you $25,000. Your malpractice pays 100% of it. But here's the beautiful part about the Candor process. Nothing is reportable on the National Practitioner Database. Nothing goes to the state board. It hits no records at all. It's just clean and clear. This is something I did. We had an adverse outcome. Here, patient, I want to do right by you. Let's get you to one of my specialists that I'm friends with, and we'll get it fixed up. And then everyone gets paid appropriately. You have to initiate Candor before there's a demand by the patient. If the patient gives you an email asking for more money, then you actually charge them. So if I charge $20,000 and she asks for $50,000, Candor's over. If I address it ahead of time, then the Candor process can still be initiated. So just know, you have to know the laws and you have to know what's available to you, especially when you start getting into more complex work. And so Maxine is one of mine. And essentially, when Maxine came in, I was young and I wanted to do every single case. And I was just thrilled that someone was willing to spend that type of money with me. And so I said yes. And there were so many red flags, so many red flags. Maxine was not all there. And I still did her case. And so you can see that red outline. We start getting bone loss on one of the distal implants. I'm like, okay, great, let's fix it. All is well. So I fix it. And then you can see in the other slide, there's bone loss on the other 2 implants that I just placed. Now, me today is going to look at it and figure out like, okay, well, Maxine, what's going on? Let's review med history. What are you doing? What's happening here? I just repaired your surgery. Why are we having another failure? But naive and younger me was, let's just fix it again. I fix everything for free. If you pay me a global fee for a case, I'm going to get you to the finish line and I'm not going to charge a penny more. That's at least the philosophy I have in my practice. As long as they make all their visits and they wear their occlusal guards and they do all the things I ask them to do, then I'm going to make sure that they get taken care of. But now I fix it again. And I took those 2 implants out and I put 3 new implants in there. And then we start getting bone loss on all the 3 implants again. Now at this point, I finally wise up and I'm like, okay, let's just look at your medical history. Let's just see what's going on here. And of course, she didn't report that she was on SSRIs and she was on 3 different SSRIs and she was out drinking and doing lines of Coke and all sorts of stuff. And so I was like, okay, well, thank God, at least something's going on. I just finally understood that this wasn't my fault. I was so confused in the moment. And then I got served papers. And then when we presented the medical history with the incomplete form filled out on the mental wellness component, then it got thrown out. And this case is 5, 6, 7 years ago now at this point. And Maxine's husband actually called me 3 months ago. So these cases never leave you. They never leave you. So again, case selection is so important. You'd rather see the back of their head leaving your office 1 time than the front of their face coming in unhappy 40 times. Because every time they come in, we already did the numbers, we know we're burning money every time they come in and take up that operatory space. So case selection is really huge. It's better to say goodbye to 50 grand now than say goodbye to $200,000 in stomach lining and sleepless nights and all this stuff later down the road. I'm not going to spend too much time on codes here, but if you guys want to scan this QR code, there's a lot of new codes that are out in dentistry pertaining specifically to implants. Pick all your own numbers, make your UCR whatever you want to make it, and I'll kind of point out some of the ones that I think are a little bit more interesting. And then we make up some of our own dummy codes in here as well. But if you are using insurances, well, then you absolutely want to bill appropriately for what you do. And then sometimes the insurance companies pay quite a bit on these cases now. They're just like, you can charge for retightening a screw. You can charge for drilling into the access hole on a single unit crown. Then you can charge for retightening the screw, and then you can charge for refilling the access hole. And there's codes for all of this stuff now. And I haven't been billing out things properly up until my team did a review on it all. So you got your biologics, which is your PRF, precision attachments for your overdentures, surgical placement of a single implant, prefab abutments, bone graft at the time of implant placement, bone graft for ridge preservation without an implant, implant abutment supported for a denture, for an edentulous arch. I mean, God, there's so many codes here. So definitely get this to someone in your team. I don't want you spinning your wheels trying to memorize all this stuff. Just get it into the right hands and someone who's OCD and who will build things out for you appropriately. And then this is also important to show the patients. When I talk about bundled versus unbundled, I'm equating it to, hey, when my kids were born, they charged me for aspirin, they charged me for warm blankets, they charged me for all these things. And then Mrs. Jones, look at all these codes that we're going to be using for you. With your traditional insurance, you're paying more than a patient who is a cash patient in this practice, and I don't think that's right. So let's have you sign the high-tech form. Let's charge you one global fee for all of this, and then I don't have to nickel and dime you. But if we don't sign the high-tech form, then I'm contracted by the insurance company to bill out everything that I do, and I got to charge you for the aspirin, and I got to charge you for the warm blankets. And so this is important to have because sometimes you're not going to be doing a $20,000 case. Sometimes you're going to be doing the single unit, and the single unit you need to bill appropriately, because now if you're contracted with the insurance company, well, hey, let's get the insurance company to pay for what they need to pay for. So you can charge for the temporary abutment, and you can charge for the temporary crown that goes on top of the temporary abutment. You charge for removal of implants. You can charge for an uncovery of an implant. I mean, oh, and then the hygiene ones are important because there's an implant maintenance code, but there's also a different code for when there's bleeding on probing per implant. So now you're billing for the mucositis component of it as well. Radiographic surgical guides, unspecified, make up your own code. There's some unspecified things that occur every once in a while. There's a code for zygomatic implants now. So there's so many things that we can do in our practice to boost up the revenue line, that top line. So if your P&L is high and you're wondering why you can't get those numbers lower, then sometimes you have to increase your top line revenue number, and then all the percentages will get more in line as well. So at least this one resonated with me. The first half of my life was devoted to forming a healthy ego and having absolute self-belief and understanding that I had the follow-through to build and create things and go out into the community and say it confidently, like, hey, yeah, we're good at this stuff. If you guys come and you trust me with your care, we're going to deliver on that. So you need to embody that thought process. That will attract patients into your practice. And then the second half of your life is going inward and letting go of the ego and understanding that we are here to serve, but you need to form the ego first to get the reps and get the case acceptance and take it to the next level. And then the hard part is letting it go and just kind of surrendering to it. People in spirituality say surrender. Other people call it not caring as much and just going with the flow. It's whatever you want to call it. And then remember, pain pushes until you create the vision that pulls you in the right direction. Don't chase someone else's success, and authenticity is big business. And if you guys want to scan this QR code, you have ability to download the presentation. I hope you all have a wonderful lunch. I'll see you afterwards, and thank you for your attention.